Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Poe, and today I'm going to be telling you about some new releases that I am anticipating very much that are releasing in Q3, which is July, August, and September of 2022. I had such a fun time looking at all of the books that are going to be released in these months, and there are so many incredible books coming out. I had such a hard time reducing this list down to just 15, but these are ones that I'm especially excited about. They look so good. If you're interested in my past anticipated releases videos, I will link those down below for Q1 and Q2. But let's go ahead and talk about these Q3 new releases that are coming up. The dates that I'm going to talk about are just based on whatever the Goodreads page says. First, on July 5th, is Night of the Living Res by Morgan Talty, who is a citizen of the Penobscot Indian Nation. This is a short story debut collection that is set in Maine with a Penobscot community and has some elements of horror and themes of survival. So it sounds really, really interesting. And the horror elements in this sound more like they might be a little bit more psychological, things like that, which I'm very interested in. So we'll see if I can handle this one. Then on July 19th, there's another book with some horror elements that I'm looking forward to, which is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. So even though I really don't like horror, or especially body horror, this is Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and this is a new release that she has about the story of the island of Dr. Moreau, but retold from the perspective of Dr. Moreau's daughter. And Silvia Moreno-Garcia does this amazing job of retelling stories from a very feminist perspective, reimagining things. So even though I think that the maybe gruesome aspects in this might be a little bit of a stretch for me, I really want to try it because I want to pick up everything that she writes. Then on July 26th, Poūkahangatus by Tayi Tibble is being released. This is a poetry collection by a Maori author talking about a lot of kind of traditional mythology across different regions through a feminist and anti-colonial lens, which sounds exactly my style. Plus, I saw in some descriptions that this has some humor to the poem, so that sounds really good. Also on July 26th is Calling for a Blanket Dance by Hokeah, who is a Latinx and Indigenous author who is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma. This is a debut novel that sounds really interesting in its structure. So it's the story of an Indigenous man who is Cherokee and Kiowa, but it's told through the perspective of different family members. And this is sort of a multi-generational story, really focusing on identity and home and kind of finding yourself. And it sounds like it's going to be super interesting both in themes as well as in the structure itself. Then on August 2nd, another book with really interesting sounding structure that's being released is Walking Gentry Home, a memoir of my foremothers in verse by Alora Young. So Young has done a bunch of research about her ancestry, looking in archives, writing down family lore, and has built a book which is a family history, a memoir of all of her family that is built upon her research, but also her imagination, imagining how her ancestors have lived. And she tells the story of her family through verse, through poetry. I think that this is going to be so interesting to read and just so emotional and beautiful. So I'm really, really interested in it. On August 9th, Empty Smiles by Katherine Arden is being released, which is the fourth and final book in the Small Spaces middle grade horror series. I have a lot of horror on this anticipated releases list, which is unusual for me, but I have been really enjoying this series. It is about a group of kids who basically are dealing with some very nasty supernatural events. Each book in the series takes place in a different season. The first one starts in fall. This one, the final one, is in summer, and it takes place in a carnival and has a very, very creepy cover. So I am really looking forward to the conclusion of this series, even though such a creepy cover. On August 16th, another book that I have been very much anticipating is The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This is the second book in the Burning Kingdom series. So I had absolutely loved the first book in this series, The Jasmine Throne, and I just can't wait for the story to continue. So this series is set in an epic fantasy world that is inspired by Indian epics, and it is filled with so much political intrigue and so much incredibly interesting magic. It has a lot about morality and torn loyalties and choices and the way that we try to solve problems, and different people have different methodologies. It is just really fascinating. Plus it has this kind of side sapphic romance that I'm really hoping will be explored more throughout the rest of the series. I just absolutely love the first book and I cannot wait for the second one. On August 30th, another book that I'm really highly anticipating this year is being released, The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I absolutely loved The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez, and I just want to pick up whatever else he publishes, and this one sounds like it's going to be just as good. It is an epic fantasy that is about a god who has been imprisoned by a very tyrannical emperor and his family, and they've been siphoning off her power, but she escapes and with the help of some friends kind of needs to overthrow that power. It just sounds really epic and wonderful, and I can't wait to read more by him. Also on August 30th is A Taste of Magic by Elle. This is a contemporary middle grade fantasy that has pretty much everything I'm looking for. So this is about a girl who discovers that she has magical abilities, and so she has to kind of go to a secret magic school in her community, except that then the funding gets cut for her school and they don't know what to do, except she finds that there's a baking competition that if she wins, she can earn enough money to help her school get by. Baking competition along with magic. I think this is going to be such a great middle grade. I'm super excited about it. On September 6th, Year of the Tiger by Alice Wong is being released. Alice Wong is the editor of Disability Visibility, which is an essay collection that I've heard amazing things about and very strongly want to read. But this is a memoir that it sounds very interesting and very multimedia. So it sounds like this is a collection of essays about her life, about her activism, but also mixed in with a bunch of artwork and other things. So this sounds like it's going to be, again, a really interesting structured book. And I love memoirs, and I really want to read this one as well. Another nonfiction book releasing on September 6th that sounds fantastic is In the Dark Fantastic by Akao Ishun. This is an art book, so this is going to be a book filled with so many different images and pictures of paintings and sculptures and film and all kinds of things that explore Afrofuturism, as well as essays talking about kind of the magic and the beauty of Afrofuturism, the power of imagining futures that are based on African mythology and folklore and culture and beliefs. I really like photo books, and this sounds like it's going to be such a great one to look at and read. Also releasing on September 6th is The Curse on Spectacle Key by Chantel Acevedo. This is a middle grade contemporary mystery story about a Cuban-American boy whose family renovates lighthouses. And so they've moved into this new lighthouse, except that he discovers that there is a ghost there and there is a mystery that he has to work together with the ghost to solve. I love mysteries and middle grade, and this sounds really like it's going to be such a fun read. On September 13th, there's another middle grade that I'm looking forward to. Ivelisse Explains It All by Andrea Beatriz Arango, illustrated by Alyssa Bermudez. This is a middle grade in verse, which I'm super excited about. I love novels in verse, and this is about a girl who has just entered middle school, and she's going through a lot. She's got a lot of anger, and she's also taking some medication to deal with her kind of mental health problems, and at the same time, her grandmother from Puerto Rico moves in with them and really questions like why she even needs to take medication, these sorts of things. And this is all about Ivelisse finding her voice and learning how to advocate for herself, which sounds fantastic. Also on September 13th is a poetry collection, Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency by Chen Chen. I cannot get over how much I love the titles of Chen Chen's work. I'm currently in the middle of a different collection of his, which is When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities. Again, amazing titles. And I'm loving this collection so far. It's just filled with so much humor and play, but also a lot of really interesting commentary, especially because Chen Chen is a queer Asian American, just talking about that identity. And this new one sounds like it's going to be about all of those same things, but also just addressing kind of the world being on fire, the Trump era and the mass shootings and COVID-19 and everything like that. So I think that this is going to have some really interesting commentary on what the world is like right now, done through some great poetry. And then lastly, on September 27th is The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. Neon Yang is a queer Singaporean author who wrote the 10 Surit series, which is a silk punk series that is really, really fantastic. So this is their new series, new work that sounds really spectacular and like it's gonna be very, very immersive and have great world building. It is about Misery, who has these saint-like abilities that are very, very powerful, but also sometimes people who manifest those actually are just descending into madness rather than able to actually use that magic. And so they don't really know what's going to be happening to them. And a lot of other people want to use their powers because there is war going on and many different factions want to use them. So this sounds like it's going to be a lot of political intrigue and kind of space opera stuff. It sounds fantastic, and I know that Neon Yang can do some really amazing world building, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so those are 15 of the books that I am most looking forward to in the third quarter of 2022. There are a ton of other books that I wanted to include on this list too, but I'm trying to be reasonable and limit myself to 15. If you guys are interested in any of these, or if you have other books that you're looking forward to that are releasing in July, August, or September, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you.